Veronica Turner adjusted her glasses and looked at the 30 young faces in front of her. The audience fell silent waiting for the psychology professor to begin her lecture. Have you ever wondered what it means to live with a heavy heart? She asked, looking around at the students. Today, we're going to talk about the mechanisms of guilt and how the brain deals with traumatic memories. Sometimes we make a deal with the past, trying to convince ourselves that we can just move on. Veronica took a deep breath, trying not to show a sudden wave of weakness. There was that nausea again. She discreetly pulled a blister of pills from her jacket pocket and swallowed one, drinking water from the bottle. Professor Turner, are you all right? A student in the front row asked worriedly. Of course, Ashley. Veronica smiled. Let's continue. After the lecture, Veronica walked slowly down the university corridor, leaning on her cane harder than she would like to admit. At 53, a person shouldn't be so tired. But her body no longer obeyed the usual rules. Kidney failure dictated its own terms. Her cell phone vibrated. Don't forget dialysis at 15:30. Jack, she smiled. Jack never forgot to remind her of her treatments. Even though she remembered the schedule perfectly, it was his way of caring, unobtrusive but constant. In the dialysis clinic, Veronica settled into a chair, habitually placing her hand in the nurse's for the needle. How are you feeling today? Professor Nurse Diana asked, fixing the sensors. The usual, dreaming of getting a kidney and never seeing this room again. Veronica grinned. Your last blog post was so inspiring. You have a talent for turning even the struggle with illness into something meaningful. 3 hours later, Veronica felt the familiar weakness. After the procedure, she slowly walked out of the clinic, where Jack was already waiting for her in his old Ford. How's my beauty? He opened the car door, helping Veronica to get in. Tired, she answered honestly. Today had been harder than usual. Jack, a stout man of 57 with a neatly trimmed gray beard, kissed her gently on the forehead. Veronica had met him 2 years ago at a psychology conference. Jack taught criminology at a nearby college, and their romance had developed slowly, as people who have reached the second half of life should. When Veronica's diagnosis became more serious, Jack didn't disappear as she feared. On the contrary, he grew closer, becoming a constant in her life. I have news, he said, starting the car. I got the test results back. Veronica tensed. Jack had insisted on testing compatibility for a kidney donation, even though she'd been against it. I incompatible, he said quietly, not taking his eyes off the road. I'm sorry, Veronica. I was so hopeful. She squeezed his hand. You're doing more than enough, Jack. I never asked you to do this, but I wanted to. He stopped the car at a red light. I love you, Veronica, and I hate feeling useless. You're never useless, she smiled. Now let's go home. I have a new blog post to write. People are waiting at home. Veronica settled down with her laptop, her blog life waiting needed to be updated. She started typing. Day 264 on the waiting list. Dialysis again today. If you've never spent 3 hours watching a machine do the work of your kidneys, let me describe the feeling. Imagine your life energy being slowly pulled through a needle. As she typed, Veronica's gaze fell on a photograph on the bookshelf. A wedding photo from 15 years ago. Her and David Young smiling. A photo she should have put away years ago, but somehow kept as a reminder. The memory came unexpectedly, as it often had in recent years. Their last fight, the yelling. David accusing her of being cold, of never really loving him. Veronica tired of his control, of his constant complaints. You're dead inside, he'd yelled. Then stepping on her in the living room, with the fireplace she'd completely remodeled after that night. Get out of my life. She pushed him, then harder than she intended. David lost his balance and fell, hitting his head on the marble edge of the fireplace. Blood. So much blood spread across the light-colored carpet. David lay motionless, eyes open, staring into nothing. The panic that had gripped her then still returned in nightmares. The call to Anna, a trembling voice. I killed David, help me. Veronica pushed the memory away and returned to the blog, but the words wouldn't come. She closed the laptop and walked to the window. Outside evening was thickening, and the streetlights were already illuminating the quiet suburban street where she'd lived for the past 15 years. After that night, she couldn't stay in their old house and had sold it, buying this little cottage overlooking the park. The phone rang. "Are you all right?" Anna's voice sounded concerned. She and Anna had been friends since college, but they'd only become real friends after that night. Nothing like a jointly buried body to bring you closer together. It's okay. Dialysis work blog. Veronica listed a normal day for a dying woman. Don't say that. Anna always reacted acutely to the mention of death. You'll find a donor. You have to find one. And if I don't, Veronica stared into the darkening sky. Maybe this is payback, Anna, for what we did. Stop it. Anna's voice trembled. We agreed never to talk about it. It's been 15 years, Veer. Let it go. That's easy to say. Veronica sighed. You can't feel the way he looks at you from the wedding photo. Get rid of the damn picture. Anna exclaimed. Why do you even keep it? Veronica didn't answer how to explain that. The photograph was her form of penance, a daily reminder of a sin she could never atone for. Anna, I'll call you back later. She finally said Jack would be here soon with dinner. After dinner, which Jack brought from Veronica's favorite Italian restaurant, they settled down on the couch to watch a movie. Veronica snuggled into his strong shoulder, feeling grateful that she had the good fortune to have met this man. Jack was the complete opposite of David. Calm, reliable, not prone to drama. What are you thinking about? He asked, noticing that Veronica wasn't following the plot of the movie about life, about how things could have been different. She looked up at him. Jack, you never asked me about David. Why? He was silent for a moment, pondering an answer. I can see you tense up when his name comes up in conversation. I figured you'd tell me when you were ready. Do you want to know? Of course. He kissed the top of her head. I want to know everything about the woman I love, even if it hurts. Veronica opened her mouth to say, what exactly? The truth. The lie she'd been repeating for 15 years. That David just walked away. Or the half-truth that their marriage was unhappy. The ringing of the doorbell spared her from having to answer. Who could it be this late? Jack frowned, glancing at his watch. It was almost 10 o'clock at night. Probably the courier with the medicine. Veronica said, getting up. I'm waiting for a package from the pharmacy. She went to the door and opened it without looking. Through the peephole on the threshold stood a man with graying temples, wearing a dark coat. His eyes, the same blue eyes that had looked at her from the wedding photo, studied her face with an unreadable expression. Veronica felt her knees go weak. The room spun, and she had to grab the door jamb to keep from falling. Veronica, who's there? Jack's voice sounded distant. The man on the doorstep smiled slightly. The same half-smile he'd had 15 years ago. But the wrinkles around his eyes were deeper, and his once perfect black hair was now streaked with gray. Hello, Veronica, said David Turner, the man she buried in the woods 15 years ago. I know you need a kidney. I've come to help. Veronica stood leaning on the door jamb, feeling the ground go out from under her feet. Her ears were ringing, and black dots floated in front of her eyes. This was impossible. The man she buried in the woods 15 years ago couldn't be standing on her doorstep. Veronica, what's wrong? Jack's voice brought her back to reality. He came to the door, placing a hand on her shoulder. She felt the warmth of his palm, but she couldn't take her eyes off the ghost on her doorstep. Good evening, David said with a slight smile. You must be Jack Foster. I'm David Turner, Veronica's husband. Ex-husband, Jack corrected automatically, his hand on Veronica's shoulder tensing. The one who disappeared 15 years ago. That's right, David nodded. And now I'm back. May I come in? I think we have something to talk about. Veronica finally found her voice. That's impossible. You're dead, as you can see. I'm quite alive. David spread his hands. And I'm ready to explain everything. But maybe not on the doorstep. Jack looked at Veronica, waiting for her decision. She nodded slowly and stepped aside, letting David into the house. In the living room, David sat down in the chair across from the couch, where Veronica and Jack had settled. He looked around the room carefully. "It's cozy," he remarked. "I always knew you had good taste, Veronica." "Enough small talk," Jack said sharply. "Explain why you showed up after 15 years. And how the hell are you even alive?" David unbuttoned his coat, revealing an expensive suit. "It's a rather unusual story. He began that night 15 years ago, when Veronica and I had a fight." He looked directly at her. "When you pushed me, and I hit my head on the fireplace. I did faint, but I didn't die." Veronica felt Jack tense up beside her. "What are you talking about?" "She whispered the truth, Veronica," David replied calmly. "It took me about 20 minutes to regain consciousness. You were in the other room talking on the phone. I heard you tell Anna that you had killed me and needed help." He paused. "At that moment, I realized this was my chance to start a new life, but I buried you." Veronica felt herself begin to shake. "Anna and we took your body into the woods." "Not mine," David shook his head. "When I realized you thought I was dead, I decided to act fast. I had about an hour while you waited for Anna. I snuck out of the house and found a homeless man sleeping in a park nearby." His voice grew quieter. "I killed him, Veronica. I dragged him into the house and wrapped him in the same rug you wrapped me in. He disappeared." Veronica felt nausea rising in her throat. Jack put his arm around her shoulders, supporting her. "So what you're saying," Jack said slowly, "is that 15 years ago you killed an innocent man, framed your wife, made her think she'd killed you, and now you've just come back as if nothing had happened?" "Roughly speaking, yes." David nodded. "I wouldn't put it that way, though. I saw an opportunity, and I took it. Our marriage was unhappy, and we were both looking for a way out." He looked intently at Veronica. "But let's not forget that it was you who decided not to call the police, but to dispose of the body. You made a conscious choice, Veronica." Veronica felt a chill run down her spine. He was right. She could have called the police, explained that there had been an accident. Instead, she'd chosen to cover up the crime, bury the body. Making excuses, David, she snarled. "Yes, I chose not to call the police, and I live with that choice every day. But that doesn't excuse you for killing an innocent man." "I'm not looking for excuses," David replied calmly. "I'm just getting the facts straight. We both committed crimes that night." "Why did you come back?" Jack asked, interrupting their exchange of glances. "Why now?" David shifted his gaze to him. "I've been following Veronica for the last few years, through social media. Her blog about kidney failure is very detailed. I know she needs a kidney, and I'm here to offer mine." There was silence in the room. Veronica stared at the man she had thought dead for years, trying to comprehend his words. "Why so generous all of a sudden?" Jack asked. 15 years in hiding, and now you're willing to give an organ to the woman you ran away from. Let's just say," David folded his fingers, "I have my reasons. I've done a lot of rethinking over the years. And then after all, I'm still guilty." Before Veronica, he smiled at her. "Consider this my form of apology." Veronica had finally gotten over the shock, and now she could feel the rage building up inside. 15 years, she said, enunciating every word. 15 years, I lived with the thought that I'd killed you. I woke up nights with nightmares, and you were alive and watching me the whole time." She moved forward. "And now what? I'm supposed to be grateful that you generously decided to save me, after everything you've done." "I understand your anger," David nodded, "but the fact remains that you need a kidney, and I might be a possible donor." "What makes you think you're a match?" Veronica asked coldly. "We're not related. I've already done preliminary tests on blood type and some other markers." David pulled an envelope from his inside pocket. "The results are encouraging. Of course, more tests are needed, but the chances are not bad." Veronica stared at the envelope, feeling conflict brewing in her chest. Anger at the man who had ruined her life, fought against the desperate hope of salvation. How do I know this isn't another one of your games? She asked. You don't trust me. David grinned, reasonably so. But you can always check. I'm willing to undergo all the necessary tests. At your clinic, I think we need time. Jack intervened. Veronica has just gone through a shock. I suggest we continue this conversation tomorrow. Of course. David stood up and handed Veronica a business card. Here's my number and the address of the hotel. Call me when you're ready to talk. He headed for the door, but stopped and turned around. By the way, Veronica, I know about your other secret. The one you and Anna buried in the woods. That's part of our conversation too. After he left, Veronica sat motionless for a long time, looking at the closed door. Veronica, Jack began cautiously. I know this isn't the time. But what was he talking about? What happened 15 years ago? She turned to him, her face a storm of emotions: fear, guilt, anger. I did something I should never have done, she said quietly. David and I did have a fight. I pushed him, and he hit his head on the fireplace. There was a lot of blood. I was sure he was dead. She took a deep breath. I could have called the police. You should have. It would have been the right thing to do. But I panicked. Called Anna instead of the emergency services. You were scared, Jack said softly, taking her hand. No. Veronica shook her head. I was completely calm. Terrified, yes. But I knew exactly what I was doing. I deliberately chose to hide the body, Jack. I wrapped it in a rug. I waited for Anna. We took it into the woods together and buried it. She looked him straight in the eye. I never called the police. I never reported my husband missing. I just told everyone he'd left after a fight. And all these years, I lived knowing I'd buried my own husband in the woods. Jack was silent for a long time, pondering her words. Then he hugged her tightly. And now it turns out that I didn't kill David. Veronica continued, not responding to the hug. But I did help cover up the murder of an innocent man. The next morning, Veronica woke up with a headache. The events of last night seemed like a nightmare. But David's business card on her bedside table was real. Jack had brought her coffee in bed. He'd stayed the night with her, even though she'd barely spoken to him since the confession. How are you? He asked, taking a seat next to her. I don't know, she answered honestly. I feel like I've been hit over the head. What are you going to do? Veronica stared at the mug of steaming coffee, pondering her answer. I have to talk to Anna, and then I'll decide about David. I'll go with you, Jack said firmly. No. Veronica shook her head. This is my past, and I have to deal with it on my own. Anna was waiting for her in a small cafe in the park. When she saw Veronica's face, she immediately realized that something serious had happened. What happened? She asked, when Veronica sat down across from her. David is alive, Veronica said. Without preamble, he came to see me last night. Anna turned pale. The cup in her hand shook, and the coffee spilled onto the table. It's impossible, she whispered. We buried him. I remember every minute of that night. He says he woke up while I was calling you, killed a homeless man, and put his body in his place. Veronica watched her friend's reaction carefully. Jesus, Anna covered her face with her hands. This is a nightmare. What did he want? Why did he come back now? He says he wants to give me a kidney. That he's been following me on social media and knows I'm sick, and you believe him? Anna looked at her incredulously. Veronica, it's David. He's never done anything for nothing. I don't know what to believe, Veronica admitted, but if he really is compatible, no. Anna grabbed her arm. You can't accept his help. He must be up to something besides. She lowered her voice. He knows about that body in the woods. If he tells the police, I know. Veronica nodded. He's already mentioned it. In fact, it's a threat. All the more so. Anna squeezed her hand. Veronica, you can't trust him, even if the price is your life. Easy for you to say, Veronica grinned bitterly. You're not the one dying. At that moment, her phone rang. An unfamiliar number. Professor Turner. A man's voice sounded when she answered. This is Detective Alan Morrison from the Homicide Squad. We need to talk. Veronica froze, looking at Anna with wide eyes. What's this about, Detective? It's about your husband, David Turner. We've received information that he's returned. After 15 years away given the circumstances. We need to ask a few questions. What circumstances? Veronica asked cautiously, feeling her insides tighten. I'd prefer to talk about it in person. Professor Turner, when would it be convenient for you to meet? I can come to the station in 2 hours. If that suits, that's fine. I'll be waiting for you. Thank you for your cooperation. Hanging up the phone, Veronica looked at Anna. Police. She said briefly. Detective Morrison wants to talk about David's return. Oh my God. Anna looked frightened. What are you going to do? What I have to? Veronica replied, try to find out what they know. The police station welcomed Veronica with a chill and the smell of coffee. Detective Morrison was a tall man of about 48, with alert gray eyes and early gray hair. Thank you for agreeing to come. Professor Turner, he said, pointing to the chair across from his desk. As I said on the phone, we're interested in the unexpected return of your husband. Ex-husband, Veronica corrected automatically. Although technically, we were never divorced, right? Morrison nodded, making a note in his notebook. Tell me exactly when he came back. And under what circumstances? Last night, Veronica said calmly. He just showed up on my doorstep. And what did he say about his absence for 15 years? He said he wanted to start a new life. That our marriage had been unhappy. Morrison looked at her carefully. Professor Turner, the return of a person after 15 years of absence is a rather unusual event, especially when that person has left no trace, no financial transactions, no use of documents. It was as if he had simply vanished off the face of the earth. Veronica felt her mouth go dry. Detective, I don't know what you want me to say. David left 15 years ago after a fight, and now he's back. You never reported him missing. Morrison pointed out. Why? I knew he left voluntarily. Veronica tried to keep her voice steady. We had a bad breakup. I decided it was best for both of us. I see. Morrison made another note. And now, what? He just came back for no reason. Veronica hesitated. He found out about my illness. I have kidney failure, and I need a donor. David. She swallowed. David offered to be the donor. The detective's eyebrows went up. That's an interesting twist. A man disappears for 15 years, and then comes back to give a kidney to his ex-wife. He shook his head. That doesn't sound like an ordinary story. Professor Turner, life is rarely ordinary at all. Detective Veronica held his gaze. May I ask why the police are so interested in my husband's return? As far as I know, it's not a crime to disappear for 15 years. No, it isn't. Morrison agreed, but we became interested in this case after we received an anonymous tip. He paused. Someone claims that something bad happened to your husband the night he allegedly left, and that you may have had something to do with it. Veronica felt the blood rush from her face. This is absurd, she said in a weak voice. As you can see, my husband is alive and well. Yes, he is. Morrison nodded. But now, I would like to speak to him, and perhaps your friend, Anna Gray. From what I understand, she was close to your family, and may have known about your last fight with your husband. Veronica clenched her hands under the table to keep them from shaking. Of course, detective. I'll tell David you want to talk to him. Thank you for your cooperation. Professor Turner. Morrison stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. We will contact you if there are any further questions. Leaving the station, Veronica immediately dialed David's number. Police, she said. As soon as he answered, Detective Morrison wants to talk to you, and Anna too. Expected, David replied calmly. Don't worry, I know what to say, and I keep my word. Nothing that could hurt you. They got some kind of anonymous message. David, that something happened to you that night, and that I might have had something to do with it. There was silence on the other end of the line. It's a problem, he finally said. But it's okay, we'll get through it. Don't forget that I'm here now, alive. And I can confirm that I just left after the fight. He was silent for a moment. By the way, have you thought about my offer? Yeah, I don't know, David. Veronica answered honestly. It's also complicated. Time is not on your side, Veronica. He reminded her gently. Think about it. After talking to David, she went to Anna's house. Her friend was pale and clearly scared. What are we going to do? Anna asked. Once Veronica had told her about the conversation with the detective. If they start digging, they won't find anything, Veronica said firmly. Even though she wasn't sure David is alive, he'll confirm that he just left after the fight. And what about the body in the woods? If they start looking, why would they look? Veronica tried to sound confident. No one knows about that place except the three of us. But this anonymous report. Anna fidgeted nervously with the hem of her blouse. Who could have sent it? I don't know. Veronica shook her head. But we have to stay calm and stick to the same story. You just say that you knew about my fight with David, and that I called you that night because I was upset. What if they ask for more? Just say what everyone knows. We had a fight, and he left. Veronica squeezed her friend's hand. We'll manage. Anna. Back home, Veronica found Jack waiting for her with dinner. How did it go? He asked, kissing her on the cheek. The police were interested in David's return. She replied tiredly. They received some anonymous report that something had happened to him that night. Jack frowned. That's odd. Who would send such a message? I don't know. Veronica slumped down in her chair. This whole thing is like a nightmare, Jack. 15 years, I lived with the idea that I'd killed a man. And now it turns out I didn't kill David, but I was involved in the murder of an innocent, homeless man. Jack sat down next to her and took her hands in his. What are you going to do about David's offer? About the kidney? Veronica was silent for a long time before answering. I don't know. On the one hand, it's a chance at life. On the other hand, I don't trust him. I don't know what he's up to. What's more important than life? Jack asked quietly. Even if you don't trust him, why not take this chance? Veronica looked at him with a long look. Is that really what you think? That I should accept his help? I think you should live, he answered simply. And we'll sort out the rest together. The next day, Veronica made an appointment with David at the clinic to undergo tissue compatibility tests. The results exceeded all expectations. They were almost a perfect match for the transplant. It's a rare coincidence, Dr. Ramez said, as he reviewed the results. It usually happens in close relatives. You're very lucky, Mrs. Turner. As they left the clinic, Veronica looked at David. Why are you doing this? She asked him bluntly. The real reason, David. No games. He looked at her for a long time before answering. Because I'm guilty to you, Veronica. I ruined your life. Made you live 15 years with the guilt of a murder you didn't commit. He paused, and because despite everything, I still remember that I once loved you. I don't believe you. Veronica shook her head. But I'll take your kidney. Not for you, but for me. For my life, that's all I'm asking. David nodded. What's the date of the operation? In 2 weeks, Veronica replied. Unless, of course, the police interfere. She couldn't sleep for a long time that night, thinking about the upcoming surgery and the fact that David was really back in her life. Strange how fate sometimes makes a circle. The man she thought had killed her was now to save her life 2 weeks before the surgery. Veronica's condition deteriorated dramatically. Dr. Ramirez insisted on hospitalization. Her creatinine levels are too high, he explained as he reviewed the results of the tests. You need constant medical monitoring before surgery. Mr. Turner has already undergone all the necessary tests and is ready to donate medically. We could perform the surgery as early as tomorrow. Veronica nodded weakly. She felt like she was in a fog. The last few days had brought more turmoil than all 15 previous years. Good. She agreed quietly. Then let's not delay. Jack helped her pack the necessary things and drove her to the clinic. He'd been there for her all these days, quietly supportive and not asking too many questions. Veronica was grateful for that silent presence. I'll come by every day, he said, as he helped her get settled in her hospital room. If you need anything, call me anytime. Thank you, she squeezed his hand. I don't know what I would have done without you. You'd be fine, Jack smiled. You're stronger than you think. After he left, Veronica stared out the window at the falling dusk. For a long time tomorrow, her life would change. Either she would get a new kidney and a chance at a future, or she didn't want to think about the other option. The door opened quietly, and David entered the room. He looked calm, even relaxed. "How are you?" he asked, sitting down on the edge of the visitor's chair, like a man who has poisoned his own kidneys. Veronica replied tiredly, "Are you really ready for the operation? All the formalities have been taken care of." David nodded. "Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. They'll take us away for preparations." He was silent for a moment, looking at her pale face. "You know, I never thought we'd end up like this. Connected again. Life writes strange circles sometimes." "It's not a bond, David," Veronica countered. "It's just a medical procedure, maybe." He smiled slightly. "But a part of me will be in you for the rest of your life." "Isn't that a connection?" Veronica felt irritated. "What did you want?" she asked bluntly. "You didn't just come to find out how I was feeling." David pulled an envelope out of his inside jacket pocket. "I wanted to give you this. Here is my written statement. To the police I confirm that 15 years ago, I left home voluntarily after an argument, and no crime has been committed against me." He placed the envelope on the bedside table. "Detective Morrison will get a copy. I think this should close the investigation." "Why are you doing this?" Veronica stared at him intently, trying to understand his motives. First the anonymous letter to the police. Now this. What kind of game are you playing? David, his expression didn't change, but something elusive flashed in his eyes. "An anonymous letter? I don't know what you're talking about." Morrison said he got an anonymous tip that something happened to me that night. Veronica reminded him. "You're the only one who could have known that, besides me and Anna." "That's an interesting assumption." David stood up. "But why would I write a letter like that and then refute it myself?" "I don't know," Veronica answered honestly. "But I know you've never done anything for nothing. Get some rest before the operation," he said, heading for the door. Tomorrow is a big day. After he left, Veronica felt uneasy. Something didn't add up about David's behavior, his sudden return, and his generous offer. Her musings were interrupted by the phone ringing. "Benna, I've just spoken to Detective Morrison," she said at once. "He's been asking so many questions about that night." "Veronica, I'm afraid." "Calm down, Anna," Veronica interrupted her. "David has written a statement to the police, confirming that he left voluntarily. The investigation should be closed." "And what if they don't?" Anna sounded panicked. "What if they dig deeper?" "Veronica, I won't be able to. Everything will be fine," Veronica said firmly, though she didn't believe her own words. "I have surgery tomorrow. Let's just focus on that, okay?" After talking to Anna, Veronica felt very tired. The medication was starting to take effect, and her consciousness was fogging up. Her last thought before she fell into sleep was that tomorrow her body would contain the organ of the man she had once tried to kill. The morning of the surgery started early. The nurses arrived at 6 to begin preparations. David had been brought into the next room, and now they were both waiting to be taken into the operating room. Jack arrived half an hour before the appointed time. He looked tense but tried to smile. "It's going to be okay," he said, squeezing her hand. "Dr. Ramirez is the best transplant surgeon on the East Coast." "I know," Veronica nodded. "It's just all so strange. I spent 15 years living with the idea that I'd killed David, and now he's giving me his kidney." "Life is unpredictable," Jack said philosophically. "But whatever happens, I'm here for you." At that moment a nurse came into the room. "Professor Turner, it's time. We're ready to take you in for surgery." Jack kissed Veronica on the forehead. "I'll see you afterward," he whispered. "I'll be waiting." The preparations for the surgery seemed endless. Connecting IVs, checking vitals, the anesthetist's final instructions. Veronica felt strangely calm. "Whatever happens, happens." "Ready?" Dr. Ramirez asked, appearing next to the gurney. "The donor is already in the operating room. Everything is going according to plan." Veronica nodded. Her consciousness was beginning to fog from the procession. "Let's start counting from 10. She heard the anesthesiologist voice 1098. At the count of 7, the world went dark. At the same time, a few dozen kilometers away from the hospital, Detective Alan Morrison was walking along a forest trail, checking his GPS. In the morning, he received another anonymous message, this time with the exact coordinates of a location in the woods. And a short note, dig here. This is crazy, grumbled his partner, Detective Rodriguez, a junior detective, chasing anonymous tips through the woods. When Turner is alive and testifying, this case has been a mess from the beginning. Morrison said, I trust my instincts, and it says we should check this place out. The GPS showed they were almost there. The clearing, surrounded by old oaks, looked completely normal. There was nothing to indicate that a body might have been buried here. Let's start here. Morrison pointed to the center of the clearing. The ground here looks disturbed. They worked in silence methodically, exploring the area with metal detectors and feelers. After an hour, Rodriguez let out an exclamation. There's something at a depth of about 1 meter and 20 feet. They began to dig cautiously at first, then faster when the shovel hit something hard. Morrison stopped. Call forensics, he said quietly. I think we found what we were looking for. Veronica regained consciousness slowly, as if emerging from a deep well. The first thing she felt was a dull ache in her side. Then there were sounds, the beeping of medical equipment, muffled voices outside the door. Welcome back, she heard Dr. Ramirez's voice. The surgery was a success. The new kidney was working. She tried to focus her eyes. Dr. Ramirez was standing next to her bed, checking the readings on the monitor. David, she asked hoarsely. How is he? Mr. Turner is fine, the doctor assured her. He's recovering in a private room. Everything went smoothly. I want to see him. Veronica tried to rise, but the pain made her sink back down. Not yet, Ramirez said softly. You both need rest. We'll arrange a meeting in a day or two. Veronica nodded, feeling the fatigue come over her again. The last thing she heard before she fell asleep again was the doctor's promise that everything would be all right. The next 24 hours passed like a blur. Veronica woke up and went back to sleep. Jack came twice, but she barely remembered these visits. Finally, on the second day after the operation, her consciousness cleared. You look better, Jack remarked, entering the room with a bouquet of white roses. Even your complexion has changed. I feel better, Veronica admitted. It's like a wake after a long sleep. That's a good sign. Jack put the flowers in the vase. Dr. Ramirez says all the vitals are excellent. The new kidney's taking good root. And David, Veronica asked. Have you seen him? Jack hesitated strangely about that. Veronica, David's gone. What do you mean disappeared? She felt her heart start to beat faster. He signed a waiver last night and left. Left a letter for you. Jack pulled an envelope from his pocket. Dr. Ramirez was furious, but legally he couldn't hold it back. Veronica took the envelope with trembling hands. David's handwriting, whom she hadn't seen in 15 years, but instantly recognized Veronica. By the time you read this, I'll be far away. My part of the bargain is done. You got a kidney that will save your life. Now I'm free to move on. Don't try to find me. Yeah, I wrote that anonymous letter to the police 3 years ago, and the second one with the coordinates. By the time you read this, Detective Morrison has already found the remains of our mutual friend in the woods. Excavations are well underway. Why did I do that? Because I wanted you to accept my kidney. I wanted you to live, and I wanted you to know the truth. You're not a killer, Veronica. You never were. I was. Take care of my kidney. It's yours now. And so is your freedom. David. Veronica felt nausea come up to her throat. He'd confessed, admitted to sending the anonymous letter on purpose to corner her. Veronica. What is it? Jack asked worriedly. She didn't have time to answer. The door to the room opened, and Detective Morrison appeared on the doorstep. His face was more serious than usual. Professor Turner, he began without preamble. We need to talk. I'm afraid I have some bad news. Jack stood up, blocking Veronica. She's just had major surgery. Can't it wait, unfortunately? Number Morrison showed his badge. Yesterday, we found human remains in the woods. According to preliminary reports, they've been there for about 15 years. Veronica clutched David's letter in his hand. What does it mean, she asked, even though she already knew the answer. It means we need to find out who the remains belong to. Morrison replied, and why your husband, who claims he just left 15 years ago, suddenly disappeared again right after the operation. He paused. Professor Turner, do you know anything about this? Veronica looked at the letter in her hand. Evidence that would clear up a lot of things. Proof that David himself had orchestrated all this chaos. She began, but was silenced when a disheveled and pale Anna ran into the room. Veronica, she exclaimed, not noticing the detective. They found. When she saw Morrison, she froze with her mouth hanging open. Miss Gray, the detective nodded. How fortunate, I was just about to talk to you. Anna shifted her gaze from the detective to Veronica and back again. Yeah, I don't know what you mean. She mumbled, I came to visit a friend after her surgery, and to let her know we found something. Morrison clarified. I wonder how you knew what you'd found. The information was kept confidential. Anna turned even paler. IA. Detective Jack intervened. I understand the importance of the situation, but Veronica is really in a very serious condition. The doctors have forbidden any kind of stress. I understand, Morrison nodded, but I'm afraid this can't wait. We're dealing with a possible murder. Veronica shifted her gaze from the detective to Anna, then to the letter in her hand. One of those present must tell the truth. But who? The detective, she finally said, unfolding the crumpled letter. I think this might help clear things up. She handed him David's letter. As Morrison read, the room was dead silent. Anna looked at Veronica with horror, Jack with bewilderment. Interesting, the detective said at last, folding the letter neatly. It explains a lot of things, but not everything. He looked at Veronica. Professor Turner, we need a full and honest statement from you about what happened 15 years ago. Veronica took a deep breath. The moment of truth had arrived. I'll tell you everything I know, she said quietly, but not now. I need time to recover. Morrison nodded. I'll give you 3 days. After that, I'll see you back at the station. He glanced at Anna. You too, Miss Gray. After the detective left, Anna collapsed into a chair. What's going to happen now? She whispered. Veronica, they found the body, and David's gone. We'll be charged with murder. Calm down, Anna. Veronica felt strangely calm. We have David's letter. He admits that he killed that homeless man. And you think that's enough? Anna fidgeted nervously with the strap of her bag. What about the fact that we buried the body in the woods? That's complicity. I know, Veronica nodded. And I'm willing to take responsibility for my actions. What? Anna stared at her. Are you crazy? Do you want to go to prison? I've lived in a prison of my own guilt for 15 years. Veronica answered quietly. Maybe it's time to break free. Jack, who had been silently watching their conversation, finally intervened. Veronica is right, he said, sitting down next to her. The truth always finds its way out. It's better to face it on your own terms. Anna shifted her gaze from one to the other. You're both out of your minds, she whispered. I'm not going to sit in jail for helping a friend in trouble. She jumped up and ran out of the room, slamming the door. Do you really want to confess everything? Jack asked quietly when they were alone. Yes. Veronica felt the weight that had been weighing on her all these years begin to recede. I'm tired of running from the truth. 3 days later, when Veronica, still weak but able to move, came out of the hospital, she was surprised Anna was standing at the entrance, shuffling nervously from foot to foot. I've been thinking, she said, not looking Veronica in the eye. You're right, it's time to stop running. Together they headed to the police station, where Detective Morrison was already waiting for them. For the next few hours, they told the full story of what had happened 15 years ago. Veronica didn't leave out a single detail. Not about how she decided not to call the police. Not about how she and Anna had buried the body in the woods. I see Morrison took notes, listening intently. Well, it's a difficult situation, but given the circumstances, he put the notebook away. We'll find David Turner. His confession in the letter is strong evidence, but we need his testimony. And what about us? Anna asked quietly. That's for the prosecutor to decide, Morrison replied, but I will include in the report that you voluntarily came forward with the confession. That will be taken into account. As they left the station, Veronica felt strangely relieved. Whatever happened next, the weight of 15 years of lies no longer pressed down on her. What now? Anna asked, when they stopped in front of Jack's waiting car. Now we wait, Veronica answered, and move on with our lives as best we can. She touched her side, where a fresh scar lurked beneath her clothes. A part of David was now part of her, a strange twisted form of connection. But he'd given her more than a kidney. He'd given her a chance to start over with the truth. -1 months later, Veronica stood in front of the mirror, smoothing the folds of her strict suit. Today was the big day. The court was making a final ruling on her case. David had never been found. Despite the best efforts of the police, vanished just as he had been 15 years ago. Forensics confirmed that the remains in the woods belonged to an unknown man, presumably homeless. Cause of death was a blow to the head with a heavy object. Based on David's letter and the testimony of Veronica and Anna, the prosecutor charged David Turner with first-degree murder, Veronica and Anna with concealment and failure to render aid. You ready? Jack asked, peering into the room. He'd been by her side all these months, supporting her every step of the way. As ready as I can be, Veronica nodded. I'll take whatever verdict I can get. Your lawyer is optimistic, Jack reminded her, all things considered. He thinks it'll be probation. Veronica nodded again. Whatever the court decided, she was already free of the lie, of the weight of the secret, of guilt for a murder she hadn't committed. She touched her side. David's kidney was working perfectly. Ironically, the man who had ruined her life had ended up saving it. Let's go, she said, taking Jack's hand. It's time to face the future. Whatever it was, it would be built on truth. And there was a certain freedom in that.